Hey folks, it's Florida Deere. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to hit on something I haven't spoken about since about 2020. And I did a couple videos in 2020 on the tractor side hustle, and you can check them out if you want. But since that time, it's been almost 4 years, I've gotten a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more wisdom that I can share. And so why now? Well, a guy by the name of Kevin from Utah messaged me, and one of my subscribers, or as I like to say, a dear friend, messaged me, and I called him back, and we started talking about stump grinding in particular and tractor work in general. And the more I talked to Kevin, I was thinking, I need to probably do another one of these videos to kind of update some of the knowledge I've been able to gather in the past 4 years. A lot of stuff I didn't know back then that I know now. And of course, I'm not going to touch on everything that I could possibly touch on, but I'm going to touch on at least what I can share with you right now and what I talked about with Kevin. So the number one thing I wanted to talk about, not necessarily in this order, but this is just the first one I want to talk about, is insurance. So you're going to insure the activity if you're, of the actual tractor work, okay? So one of the things that my insurance agent kept saying was he kept asking me if I had a backhoe, which I don't have a backhoe. But apparently there's an upcharge in the insurance rate, I would guess, if you have a backhoe. Probably because there's digging involved and, digging deep enough to where you would hit all sorts of different lines, whether they be electrical, gas, sprinkler, other plumbing, whatever, I guess. And so the cool part is mine wasn't terribly expensive because I didn't have a backhoe. The other thing is, if you have the insurance for the activity, it may or may not cover the transport from your house to, or wherever you keep the tractor, to your work site. Okay, so you're going to have to look into that, make sure that you get insurance that not only covers your tractor work activity, but also the transport from here or there. Obviously, state laws, there are 50 states, and of course, if you're seeing this from outside the states, there's probably different laws in those places too. And so each law is going to have specific laws that cover or don't cover personal versus business versus commercial use. So in a lot of places, you may have auto insurance and you may have tractor activity work, but the auto insurance will not cover you in transport because the work that you're doing is considered not for your personal vehicle, but for your business. So they're not going to cover you if you end up in some sort of accident. So that's just something to consider as well. And so now some of you might think, well, insurance is crazy, I'm not going to carry insurance. And that's fine. That's certainly your purview to decide one way or the other. But if you do enough work with your tractor, you're probably going to want to carry the insurance for a peace of mind that you will be covered if something bad happens that's out of the ordinary. That would be my take on insurance. So just do your research on it. Look into it, ask somebody, some insurance agent that's, reputable and also knowledgeable about that type of insurance. So that's what I would suggest. That pretty much covers it for point number one. Okay, so point number two is types of jobs. So if you're going to start the tractor side hustle, you're going to try to figure out what jobs you feel confident doing, what jobs you're really good at, what jobs are going to be marketable in your area. I have a list of a couple of these jobs. Loader work is obviously probably at the top of the list. I would guess most people do loader work, and that can also dive into driveway or road leveling as well, with either a box blade or a land plane. If you have one or both of those items, a lot of people have box blades. Not everybody has a land plane, but those would be other jobs that you could do. Both of those were types of jobs that I did when I did the tractor side hustle. The one I did a lot of was stump grinding. I did a lot of stump grinding. That's actually what Kevin had called me about. And so that one is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. Another one is tilling. That is not particularly a super popular thing. Either people just generally don't need large, fields tilled up. They either plow them or they do something else with them. And as far as garden tilling, with the size of the 1 Series and a 4-foot or maybe even larger tiller, you're really going to get into, unless somebody has a really open backyard and a decent sized area to till, I don't think you're really going to get too much into the tilling as far as that goes. Another one is bush hogging and field mowing. And field mowing can be either with a finishing mower or with a flail mower. Both of those could be, you could use both of those attachments for those things to a certain extent. The bush hogging is probably something that's a fairly common tractor type work as well. A lot of people have bush hogs on their tractors, and so you'll see that often. And then there might be, like I said, backhoe work, grapple work that people need done, clean up after storms or clean up after tree trimming exercise or something like that. And then if there might be other ones, if people want to leave in the comment, maybe something I've left out that I didn't think of, that is something that somebody would hire tractor work for. So that wraps up number 2. Okay, so here's the one that is probably the biggest reason why people might click on a video like this or a similar video that talks about this, and that is what to charge and maybe how to charge people for your work. So a couple things here. I would charge generally by the job, and I would give people generally an estimate or a small range. It might might be 500 or it might be 550, something like that, depending on my time, depending on what I encounter. I try to give them a pretty small range so they know it's like, okay, it's going to be within this amount. And I will do the lower fee too sometimes, and then sometimes I will do the higher fee, mostly because I'm trying to bid at a reasonable amount. So you guys want different things. When I say you guys, I mean you and the customer want different things. So they're going to protect their money, you're going to protect your time. Okay, so you're going to get money for the job, they're going to get a job done, but the way they look at it, they don't care how long it takes you to do it, as long as it's not expensive to do it. You're going to get your money for the job, but the question is, how long is it going to take you to do it? So if you're just starting out, you're probably going to have to eat some of your time because you just don't know how long it's going to take you. Now, I've seen on some of the forums and some of the pages, and guys are like, well, I charge, $100 an hour or something, let's say. And so that's interesting, but I mean, I would think he would have to know how long it takes. You can't just show up at a place and say, well, I charge $100 an hour, and then the customer say, well, how many hours do you think it'll take? And you say, I don't know. I mean, so is it going to take 2 hours or is it going to take 8 hours? I mean, because there's a big difference between $200 and $800, right? And where if you quote the job, the customer has an idea. Like I said, 5 to 550. Then okay, the customer knows. Okay, if it's good, it'll be 500. If he needs a little bit longer to do it or whatever, it's going to be 550. The customer knows he's going to pay about $525 for a job, right? So sometimes, if you already have an idea of how long a job's going to take you, then that is something that you can factor in immediately. But if you're just starting out, you may not know. And so how would you know, right? So a lot of times I would try to quote jobs over the phone. I don't really recommend this really for any jobs, because when you can get on the site, I know this takes extra time to actually stop by somebody's house, make a time where you both can meet up, talk about the stuff. But I think you can build some rapport with your customer, and also you get a better understanding of the job and any challenges that you might have. Like, is the area that they want you to work very constricted with trees, or is there a building that you're going to have to avoid, or 2 buildings you're going to have to go in between, or is there a fence gate that's really small? Are these things you're going to have to figure out? Do you even have access to where they want you to do the work, right? Is the grade really bad? These tractors are kind of top heavy, so I've been in a couple situations where I was like, this is a little frightening work. It's a little more uncomfortable than I really want it to be. And then also, you might want to see the job so you can kind of understand the job, but also so you can quote it more accurately as well. A lot of people with stump grinding, they would say, oh, well, I had the 16-inch stump, and it's like 16 inches, but it's like, they didn't cut it off but 2 feet high. By the time you actually get to the base of the stump, it's like 25, 30 inches wide, and then there's like 4 different roots going out that they're going to need grinding as well, right? If you want the job to look nice, and hopefully all of you are going to try to make your jobs nice for the people that are hiring you to do them, right? And so if you get a chance to get on site and look at these couple stumps, then you can tell them, okay, it's going to take about roughly this long, and this is going to be the quote that I give you, right? So then there's no confusion. You're not happening upon a job where you gave somebody kind of a lower quote and trying to get the job, not so low, but you're trying not to overquote it, right? And you get there, and then it's really like a lot more than you think it is. Or maybe it's a lot less than you think it is, and you end up overquoting it, then you don't get the job, even though you wanted the job. So that's a possibility too. So one thing you have to be prepared to do with the tractor work as well is you've got to be willing to pass on a job, okay? And what do I mean by passing on a job? Sometimes the job might be just a job you don't want to have. Maybe your rapport with the customer is not that good. Maybe the job is very slopey, or the area is not that good, or any number of reasons you might decide not to do the job that's specific to the job. You can't get your tractor in there. Their yard's a mess. You're afraid you're going to hit stuff that might harm it. It's maybe there's too much electrical cabling or plumbing stuff that looks like that it might be around that you might have an issue with, right? Whatever the case might be. So that's what I'd be kind of concerned about. And then that pretty much wraps up with the pricing. It's probably dependent market to market as well. Personally, I try not to show up for less than $150 to $200. And I mean, for personal friends and neighbors and stuff like that, I'll definitely show up for less than that. But and I'll get into that in the next subject that we're going to talk about, next consideration we're going to talk about. But that pretty much wraps up the pricing, I think. All right, folks, the final and fourth item we're going to talk about is extra time and equipment. Okay, so what does that mean, extra time and equipment? So it kind of relates to some of the other stuff we've talked about, types of jobs, really what to charge for your amount of money that you're going to do the job for, right? I did see one place, and again, this is dependent upon the area, but one guy was doing stumps for $25. So I don't know if you could hire him to come out to do 1 or 2, and you only pay him $25 or $50. To me, I wouldn't show up for that much. It's just too little. And what I mean by that is the extra time. And so when I head out on a job, I'm going to have to hook up the trailer to the truck. I'm going to have to make sure that the tractor's prepped and ready to go, fueled up, make sure the correct attachments are on it. I'm going to have to drive it out there to the driveway, load it up on the truck. I'm going to have to strap it down. I put up all the gates and connect all the trailer stuff, double check everything. So that's just time consuming, right? When I get there, I don't unhook the trailer, thank goodness, but I have to unstrap all 4 corners of the tractor, put the gate down. If it's stump grinding, I have to, take it out of transport mode and so on and so forth with that kind of stuff. And so there's just a lot involved with that. And the other thing is, you might want to consider how far you're willing to go out, right? Do you do work 5 or 10 miles within your, radius around your home? Do you do 20 miles, 25? Do you do 50? I mean, we're starting to get into some pretty long distances there. It's more than an hour of travel, most likely. So those are things you have to kind of consider, like, maybe you're going to do something a little further away, but maybe there's a trip charge per mile after a mile marker. Like after mile 25, you're going to charge them, $5 a mile or something, or an extra $3. I don't know, whatever the case may be. You might try to protect your time again. Remember, they just want the job done. You're trying to protect your time in getting that job done. So that's just something to consider. The other thing is maintenance costs. You're going to break stuff eventually. You're going to have, I had a bush hogging job where I flattened all 4 tires. Now the good news about that was I didn't have to replace any of them, but a couple of them had multiple holes in it. So I needed a ton of plugs, and I needed a bunch of green slime to put in, I think, 3 of the tires. have green slime, and then all of them have plugs, and some of them have multiple plugs. The point was, is that was still 25 to 30 bucks in green slime and plugs and everything else, plus all the amount of time that I took. So during the time I was replacing that, and that was a $175 job. So had I needed to replace any tires, I would have been kind of upended on that deal, you know. So you just try to protect your investment, which is also your tractor as well. But I had a turnbuckle on the 3-point hitch that went one time, and I was kind of surprised that took so long to go. I actually bought another one, so I have a spare. They were like 30 or 40 something dollars, and but it's something that's kind of particular. It's not just going to Ace Hardware and buying a bolt, you know. And but anyway, I got that thing, and what else have I busted? You know, you're going to be constantly replacing little pins, like hitch pins and cotter pins and stuff like that. Some stuff is just going to get off, and then I've lost the little dust cap protectors for the couplers. I've lost a couple other things here, and it's mostly minor stuff. But the point is, you're going to have to factor that in when you're giving somebody a quote for the job. You're going to have to figure that up, like, what is my breakage ratio? I think, you know, a lot of us own John Deere. I think John Deere is a pretty good quality tractor. Kubotas are good too, and then there's all the rest. So, you know, you want to be careful. Working at the I busted a hood working at my property because I didn't have a hood guard or a grill guard on mine. I have a grill guard on mine now, and if you pay attention to the channel, you've seen me replace that. But anyways, there's just a number of things you have to work into consideration: the insurance, the breakage that you have, the maintenance of the equipment. I didn't even talk about that. The maintenance. You know, if you're running your tractor a lot longer than normally, you know, beyond your personal use, you're going to be just changing the fluids more often, turning out tires. I mean, the tires last pretty much forever, but you will have to replace them at some point in time. But you might, you know, run into something. I did damage one of the little running lights once, and so it's just kind of things that you're going to have to replace over time. So I think that pretty much covers point number 4, or consideration number 4. Well, folks, that wraps up this particular video. I want to just do a quick shout out again to Kevin from Utah for contacting me and us, you know, taking my call and you know, chit-chatting about this subject a little bit. He kind of gave me the inspiration to make this video, and you know, to try to spread what I've kind of learned in the last 4 years to somebody that is, you know, trying to start the whole tractor side hustle thing. It can be quite lucrative if you have a little bit extra time and you have some knowledge and you run it correctly and you can get advertised correctly. So that's just, you know, it just depends on what you want to do. And again, you know, looking at the insurance and the other things we talked about, you want to consider all of these things when you're doing the tractor side hustle. In any case, if you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. And if you haven't yet and you wanted to look at more stuff concerning the 1 Series or John Deere garden tractors, hit the subscribe button as well. I'd appreciate that. And if so, I will see you in the next video.